What up, guys? This is Pete, aka Carroters, and welcome back to the Carrot Poker podcast. Today's episode is entitled Mistake, Tilt, and Confidence, and is all about one of the most common and infuriating and counterintuitive types of tilt to fix that exists in the poker world. This type of tilt is known as mistake tilt and occurs when hero perceives himself to have made a mistake that angers him, causes him to lose confidence in his ability, frustrates him, causes him to lose focus on the decision at hand. You know, sometimes he'll stop making decisions in game properly because he's still fixated on the past hand that he feels may or may not have gone wrong. And a lot of mistake tilt over a prolonged period of time can just really reduce someone's confidence and batter the hell out of the mental game until a kind of state of just continuous self-doubting tilt is reached, where every single session, plays are just made that would never normally be made with a healthy mental game, or when the mental game is in a better condition. So I want to talk today about what mistake tilt is and why it's so annoying and why it's so prevalent. I think that about 8 or 9 out of 10 of my students suffer from mistake tilt to at least a pretty severe extent, where it has a significant effect on their mental game and the decisions they make. And this is a bit more than any other kind of tilt, to be honest. Like suck out tilt, for example, where someone draws out on you and you end up going from thinking you're winning a pot to losing a pot. That only annoys about 3 or 4 out of 10 people to any kind of really significant extent. But mistake tilt, I think it's because the kind of students I get are generally very serious. If you're willing to invest money in hiring a coach for the long term, it's safe to say that you're kind of committed to improving your game, and therefore it's very likely that you're going to place a lot of value on how you play. You're going to make it a very high value thing how well you perform from session to session. And so if you feel like you've done something that basically leads to you underperforming, then you're going to be very quick to judge yourself, be harsh on yourself, maybe lose confidence in yourself, and just feel like you've destroyed progress, which is definitely something that is very harmful to your mental game as a human being, as a poker player, as a person. So what is mistake tilt exactly? Well, it's the conception that heroes made a mistake. Could be in a hand, usually it'll be in a hand that he's just recently played, or maybe even a hand that was so sort of haunting that it's still in his head from 2 or 3 days ago. But mistake tilt most commonly, I guess, happens in a session where, say, hero's on the river and villain makes a big bet, and hero's like, do I call, don't I call? Oh, I bet he's got this, he could have this, and his thought process might be, he might not be that confident in his thought process, it might not be very accurate, he should probably be thinking about his required equity, the action up until now, villain's player type, sizing, what does the line generally mean, population reads, player type reads, etc. But if he's not so confident in that thought process and isn't just nailing all the points of the thought process A, B, C till he solved the spot properly, then he's going to make some mistakes, and that's going to be normal. So he might make a call, villain shows up with a better hand, and this may or may not be a mistake. The call in and of itself may be okay, but obviously hero's thought process wasn't, because it doesn't breed a level of confidence in his decision that he's happy with. And so because hero doesn't have a good enough thought process yet to reach a firm conclusion that can stand in his head as correct, irrespective of the results of the hand, what's going to happen here is that hero's going to doubt his ability. He's going to immediately just succumb to the normal human instinct to be results orientated in poker, and to think that because he lost the hand, he must have, or very probably, or likely, or even possibly, potentially did something wrong. So this belief that he did something wrong doesn't just end there. It's not like hero goes, oh, that was probably a mistake, I'm such an idiot, let's move on. That wouldn't be too bad. That'd be a very, I wouldn't say a great way to handle mistake tilt, being that harsh on yourself, but it would be very minor mistake tilt if hero could get past it. But usually you can't get past it, because you've just underperformed and you've just devalued that thing of very high value, which is your game being as strong as it can, playing your A game, not making mistakes, making the best decisions in all spots. That's what you want to do. You want to be perfect as a poker player, even though that's unrealistic. So given this desire to be perfect, the mistake or potential mistake stays in the head, it ingrains itself, and it's now burrowing deeper and deeper into hero's brain. Other spots are coming up. Hero's got another decision, but he's still thinking, what about that spot? Was that correct or was that bad? Could that have been a mistake? He's not in the moment. He's thinking back to the previous hand, and as a result, he's now playing current and future hands badly, because he's not got the processing power, energy, time, and self-belief to think about those spots as and when they arise in and of their own right. He's still focusing on what happened in the past. And that causes more mistakes. And the pattern of thinking, I've made mistakes, becomes very habitual. And it happens all the way through the session. Right now I'm learning to drive for the first time in my life. Well, kind of the first time in my life. I kind of like played around with it a bit when I was 17, but I hated my instructor and didn't really get far. I was a little brat anyway. Nowadays, I'm learning to drive. I'm nearly 30, so I guess it's a bit tougher. And one thing that I'm very used to is performing quite well at what I do. Like, I'm very comfortable with my ability as a poker player, a coach, in my profession, and all the hobbies. You know, as a bridge player, chess player, usually I take it very seriously, and I do things I'm good at. So driving I wasn't initially very good at when I first started. I'm getting better now, but the point is, I would make mistakes and I get really pissed off and I'd be like, damn it, why can I not just remember to go into first gear at this point? Like, why can I not remember to take my foot off the clutch fast, more slowly when I'm setting off? All these things that I do wrong. And the instructor would sort of say, you're being way too hard on yourself, you're beating yourself up. And what it reminded me of was exactly how I speak to students in mistake telling. He knows that I'm a poker instructor and he'd say things like, come on, you're a coach, you must coach people this stuff. And I'm like, absolutely, I do it every single day. I tell people, you know, don't be hard on yourself, you've made a mistake, but mistakes are normal and they're natural. So I guess I had to remind myself first of mistake tell and how I deal with it with students in poker and apply that to driving to actually get somewhere. But the moral of the story is that anyone can suffer from mistake tell in any kind of environment that they're not used to. I'm not used to driving, you might not be used to being like a great winning poker player yet. That's probably why you're listening to this podcast, why you're trying to absorb as much info about the game as you can, and why you're trying to improve. So mistake tell is a definite problem. You need to have the right attitude to deal with it in the right way, and it's not so easy to overcome this type of tilt. It's very counterintuitive actually not to think about mistake tilt, because we're conditioned to always improve upon ourselves, and when we make a mistake we're conditioned to try to fix it. Now, here's what not to do when it comes to mistake tilt. Here are some very common pitfalls. Firstly, don't obsess in-game about the mistake that you believe you've just made. If you do that, then what's happening is, like I say, you're taking focus away from where it should be, which is every play in the current moment. If you think about your C game has like a very minor positive expectation in the game you're playing, and one day you set off playing your C game, it's your average game. It's not as good as your B or A game, but it's better than your D and E game, an F game. Right, I normally use A to F when I'm ranking games. Different coaches, instructors use different scales, but it's not really important. So you're playing your C game, you're making a little bit of money. You believe that when you're playing your average game, you're a slight winner in the game. Very good, fine. When you play your B or A game, you're more of a crusher. So you start off in your C game, then one such spot comes up, river decision, villain shoves. You call with two pair, you feel like you're not sure, it might be a fold against the population. You hit the call because you're timing down. Villain shows up with top set. You lose the pot, you lose a stack. And you start beating yourself up. What have I done? This is terrible. This is terrible. Now, when another spot comes up, you're no longer playing your C game, you're playing your E game. Because you're thinking about the past, you've got the negative emotion, but you can't let it go. You can't compartmentalize it, so it's affecting you in every hand you're about to play. The rest of the session's an E/F session. You lose money due to variance. Obviously, you could still win money due to variance playing badly, but it's a bit less likely. You have a bad session. How bad did that session really need to be? Probably not as bad, depending on variance. Your EV certainly didn't need to be anywhere near as bad as you made it, and if you just handled mistake tell in a better way, you could have played a full C game session and been plus EV rather than being minus EV in the session. It doesn't matter if you have a winning session or a losing session. What matters is that you have a plus EV session where you're making plus EV choices. Not all in EV. Don't look at those two lines and be like, hey, I was plus EV in this session. You probably weren't if you were making loads of mistakes that weren't in showdown spots. So I'm not talking about all in EV. I mean plus EV, you made good decisions that will make you money in the long run, regardless of whether they end up, you know, winning or losing due to all-in equity. Okay, so what not to do is obsess in game, waste time thinking about the past, and beating yourself up. These are the three big no's. Beating yourself up is really bad because it puts you into a state where you no longer have faith in your abilities, and things that you could normally do automatically in your C game slip out of your grasp, and you end up making mistakes in situations that you never normally would. That's what I mean when I say you're playing your E and F game. You're messing up spots that were almost second nature before. It's like driving. Normally you've got no problem like taking a left turn at a junction, but because you've just stalled the car and almost bashed into a lamppost, you can't do that left turn anymore. You're playing your E or F driving game. Analogous to poker. So, what should you do then? How can we rectify and fight mistake tell? Well, here are a few tips. I could write a book on this. It's such an it's a complex psychological term, I would say. It's definitely very complicated. It's not simple. And so I'm going to go over a little checklist here of things that will help you, but this is far from like actually understanding and solving the root of the problem of mistake tell. But here are some ways while you're working on your mental game to reduce its impact. In the mental game of poker, Jared Tenler talks a lot about mistake tell. It's probably a good source to read that extract, at least the section on mistake tell. But for now, here are some tips. So compartmentalize for later. Get into a habit, train a thought process in your head that can pop up time and time again. Just as when you're taking the junction and driving, you have a checklist of things you need to do the same in the mental game of poker. So when you make that call that may or may not be a mistake on the river and you lose the stack, the first thing to do is take a deep breath to calm down and reset the emotions and make sure that you're relaxed and focused, because when you're relaxed and focused, you can carry out a plan and execute it much more smoothly without just messing up and giving up on said plan. So before you talk to yourself and give yourself a logical injection, you need to calm down, you need to just get your emotions in check and get your logical C or B game mind back in place. The D or E game or F game is going to spike on the graph, if you like. It's going to exist for 10-15 seconds after you've lost that stack. You're currently playing your F game, but the key is to stabilize right back to that C game or wherever you were before. Maybe you were A gaming and you just slipped to B gaming, whatever it is. It's all a scale. So how to do that? Well, you want to take your deep breath, calm yourself down, get yourself back in the C game kind of mindset, and then be like, okay, now I'm in that mindset, I can inject some logic. And then you want to say to yourself, that may or may not be a mistake. That's the first thing. Just admit that you don't know if it's a mistake. If you knew whether or not it's a mistake, you would never have made a mistake because you don't intentionally make mistakes, right? You might figure it out later when you've got time. The second thing you need to inject logic to the effect of is to say, it's not my place right now to discern whether or not that's a mistake. So firstly, it may or may not be. That takes the power out of your hands. It's unknown, and it's okay to not know if it's a mistake. If you were supposed to know whether everything was a mistake, you'd know how to play in every single spot, and you wouldn't need to be listening to this podcast or doing anything. You'd just be a millionaire, right? So come on, let's be realistic about it. So second thing, this is not the time and place to decide if this is a mistake or not. You might make a mistake that's just so blatantly a mistake that you're disgusted, and in that case you need to modify the injection a little bit. You need to say to yourself after the deep breath, okay, I'm pretty sure that was bad, but that's okay. We'll learn from it later, find out why it happened, and move on. You get the general ethos here, right? So you want to compartmentalize for later the fact that you've made this mistake. Another thing you want to do is you want to make it a positive thing that you're going to do this. You want to say, I'll find out later whether that was good or bad, and that's going to improve my future EV and make me a better player. That's it. Or you could even say something like, if you're sure it's a mistake, I'll find out why that happened later and make sure it happens less frequently in future. Don't set yourself unrealistic goals either. Don't say, I'm never going to make that play again. I'm so bad. I'm so ashamed of myself. What an idiot. I'll never do that again. Because then if you do it again, you're going to feel like an even bigger idiot. You might do it again. It's not perfect. You know, your fixing of mistakes in future is not perfect. One day you might be playing your F game. Maybe like the cat jumps onto your face and lacerates your face while you're playing. That'd make me pretty mad. I'd be playing my F game for a few seconds. You might make a mistake while you're in reeling mode from being scratched by the cat or whatever. You might fall off your chair. You might get like a really bad news in a text message, or you might just feel really sick all of a sudden. Anything could happen. You will make that mistake again. The key is to make it less frequently. And that's why your injection should be realistic. It should be, I'm going to do that far less frequently in future by analysing why it happened. Okay, so compartmentalize. That's the first step. Put it away. It's not your place to deal with it now. Sweep it aside and your brain will rest easy knowing that it's going to be dealt with at some point. That's key. Second, remind yourself that mistakes are completely natural. It would be so ridiculous if you never made a mistake. If I got a student who never made a mistake, I'd be like, please teach me poker. Hey, I'll give you all my bankroll and you can teach me how to never make a mistake. So, are you that guy? Evidently not, because I'm coaching you and I'm not perfect and I make mistakes too. So if I make mistakes and I'm coaching you, you kind of have to make mistakes for the logical order of the world, for the poker food chain to operate. Otherwise, something's very wrong indeed. So when you make mistakes, you might make more one day than you should. And in that case, you can inject logic to the effect of, today I'm making a few mistakes, so I should just try to calm down, stabilize my game, and I'll look into why it's happening later. Not every day is this bad. Be aware of the bigger picture as well. Normally, I don't play this badly. It's good to just remind yourself of that sometimes. And that's not, if you have a particularly bad session where you feel you play badly, that's not reflective of how you are on a day in, day out basis. You have good days and bad days in driving, in poker, in any pursuit that you're learning. The third thing that you should do, so here's a little flowchart. So put aside, right? Then review it later. When you do your review later, you want to be thinking in detail. Now you can scrutinize yourself and critique yourself. Get to the bottom of the issue. Seek help from peers. Find out if that actually is a mistake. Find out why it happened. What is the culprit thought? all the time in my sessions, my students will say things to me, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I know that's bad. Let's move on. No, we're not going to move on. That would be terrible. Then it's just going to happen again. You don't know why it happened. It happened. It doesn't matter that you understand out of game that you shouldn't do that. You did it. Therefore, if you don't identify the culprit thought process that caused you to do that, or the condition that was in effect that caused you to do that mistake, you're going to make it again. And we're going to be back here tomorrow and I'm going to be saying, that's a mistake. And you're going to be saying, yeah, I know, let's move on. It's going to go on indefinitely. So tell me what the culprit thought is. Why do you think you made the mistake in the first place? What's going through your head? Let's identify the culprit and extract it from your thought process. It's like going to the doctor and having a problem, the doctor being like, there's something wrong with you, and you going, yeah, let's move on. Do you not want to know why so we can actually fix it? Like, it's logic, guys, come on. Like, you can't just give yourself a hard time and be like, oh, I shouldn't have never done that, let's just sweep it aside now and hope it never happens again. Find out why it happened. There'll be a perfectly legitimate reason for it happening that doesn't make you an idiot. It's just something distracted you. You had a misconception that could crop up again, so you better eliminate that misconception, or at least make steps to reducing its frequency of recurrence. So, put aside, review later. When you're finished with the review, and the review should not be done harshly, it shouldn't be like, you idiot, why did you do that? It should be done in a way like, okay, let's find out why this happened in my brain. My brain's not perfect. It has culprit thoughts that cause mistakes. Let's find out why it happened. Find the lesson. What's the lesson of the mistake? Generalize it, extract that lesson and turn it into something that can aid you in lots of different spots. For example, you make a mistake because you don't consider your own range and you bluff a combo that's just a crappy combo to bluff, and you play an unbalanced strategy when you shouldn't be, right? Instead of being like, don't bluff 8-4 off in that situation, that's not very useful because you don't get dealt 8-4 off 12 in 1,326 times. So how can you make that better? You can say something general to the effect of, be aware of the combos of my 3-bit bluff range and make sure they're not too unbalanced. Extract the mistake. Turn it into a general lesson. That way it can aid you in way more spots in the future. Last part, congratulate yourself. That sounds a bit odd. You've just made a mistake. Why are you congratulating yourself? You're not congratulating yourself for making the mistake. That's whatever. It happens. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just a neutral thing that occurs, right? What you're congratulating yourself for is the way that you've just handled and diffused your mistake tell. What you're congratulating yourself for is for doing a thorough, objective analysis where you didn't hate on yourself, you weren't angry, you didn't argue. You can go the other way too and be too egotistical and defend your play at all costs in the community because you just can't bear to admit you were wrong. That's also very bad. So you want to look back on the hand and be like, I've just found out why that happened, extracted a lesson from it, learned how to reduce its frequency of recurrence. I've done a really good job. That's really good mental game work. I've just made future money, EV, literally, dollars, cheeseburgers, whatever, cars, whatever you want to buy with it, whatever you can buy with it, whatever your stakes are. You've made money. Okay, and that way, you just made yourself feel good. You coach, I'll give people, as their coach, a pat on the back when they do that. I'll be like, good job, you've just stopped that from happening in future, well done. Next time you make a mistake in game, there's positive associations there. You actually start to feel okay, even good about making a mistake. Like, I've just messed that up. Well, last time I messed something up, I learned a hell of a lot and I increased my EV. I'm going to do the same again. This is awesome. That's how you beat mistake tell. It's a totally illogical thing and it's a horrible cycle to get into, where you just make that mental game leak, where you let that mental game leak occur over and over again. So finally, how does mistake tell affect confidence? Well, if you fall victim to mistake tell, your confidence becomes shattered, more mistakes happen, your confidence becomes more shattered. It's an endless circle. It goes on and on and on, and it's exponential, and it can get really, really bad until your game has fallen apart. If people say to me, my game's fallen to pieces, it's because mistake tell has stuck its claws in and shredded their mental game to pieces, and they've not done anything to combat it. So, confidence allows a state of mind that's serene, peaceful, clear, and logical. That leads to accuracy and to you playing your A or B game. Self-negativity and a lack of confidence caused by mistake tell leads to tilt, a lack of accuracy, D, E, F, F minus game, G game, Z game, however bad it can get. It can get really bad. So hopefully that helps. Hope you've enjoyed this podcast about the mental game leak of mistake tell and how it affects human confidence and how it should be handled. That's far from the full story, like I say. The Mental Game of Poker is a good resource for reading on. One day I'll probably write a book on the mental game. In fact, I'm sure I will, because I think it's pretty fascinating stuff. In the meantime, I do have a book that does exist currently on PDF only, but the Kindle version will be out very soon. I know I keep saying this, so I've got a guy working on it now who's good and getting it to look perfect. So a few weeks Kindle version on the Amazon store of the Grinder's Manual. Until then, you can head over to carrotcorner.com/the Grinder's Manual and pick up your PDF version there by clicking the link. Questions or comments, you know where to get me. admin@carrotcorner.com is the email. Interested in coaching, buying the book, joining the community for a one-off fee, whatever you want to do, you can get me on that address. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, usually within about 12 hours max, often straight away. So, thanks for listening, guys. All feedback welcome. See you in the next podcast. Bye for now.